and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for what should be our final video of the week. It's Friday, so we are going over start sit, which means I'm going to cover a huge load today, 18 individual players. I'm also going to go over all of my final tiers for the week. So we're going to cover quarterbacks, we're going to cover running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends as well, so you can have all the information that you need to dominate your opponents in a critical week 9. If you have any questions, please drop them down below. I would love to answer you. Reach out on Sleeper as well. I'm available there. If you're new to the channel or if you haven't got to it yet, please like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate the support. It allows me to do what I love so I can keep bringing you guys the content that you love, and it will help me greatly on my road to my first 100 subscribers. With that all out of the way, let's kick it off with this week's Start Sit. We are going to start with quarterbacks, and the first one on my list is Tyrod Taylor. He's going to make his first start back since his week 2 injury to his hamstring, and he gets a very beatable matchup in the Miami Dolphins. He is a great option off of the waiver wires, and Brandon Cooks is certainly a happy camper. Next, we're going to move to Kyler Murray going on the road against San Francisco. Now, as Cliff Kingsbury already stated, Murray was not expected to practice most of the week, and he has not practiced at all. That does not mean, however, that he is out for Sunday. This is a wait and see approach, but we need to have another backup option available because they have a late start on Sunday. The backup is Colt McCoy, but I am not starting him. If you need an emergency option, Jordan Love is going to be playing in that second string of games as well, and he would be a decent start, especially against that Kansas City defense. We move now to Matthew Stafford. He's got that Sunday night game against Tennessee. He's been dealing with a back injury and has 2 consecutive did not practices. Now, I am not worried just yet, but we need to keep a close eye on it just in case. You're not starting John Wolford, who is the backup there, but Justin Fields, if he's available, could be a decent emergency option for you against Pittsburgh. He is better than a goose egg, just barely. Next up is Aaron Rodgers on the road against Kansas City. And if you live under a rock, maybe you haven't heard, but Aaron Rodgers is out this week with that COVID situation. If you want to hear my in-depth analysis on that, check it out in my videos. I did it yesterday. Now, Jordan Love slides in to the bottom of my rankings, and he should be a decent start instead. We then move to Taysom Hill. He is the final quarterback I want to discuss, and he is actually not fit to start this week, so it looks like Trevor Siemian is going to get the nod. Now, he looked pretty decent, subbing in last week for Jameis Winston. However, I do not view him as a startable quarterback this week. Let's now walk through my complete tier list. At quarterback, number 1 is going to be Josh Allen, and it is looking like a possible three-peat for him, finishing as the QB1 overall in back-to-back. At 2, it is Lamar Jackson. He gets Minnesota at home. I love his upside here. At number 3, it is Dak Prescott. The Cowboys may run here more than owners are going to like, but he will be efficient and put up numbers anyway. At 4, and the final player in our tier 1 list is Matthew Stafford against Tennessee. In the second tier, we start at 5 with Patrick Mahomes, and he is going to need to step up here in a big way, especially with no Aaron Rodgers. I think the Chiefs get the win, and he gets back on track. We move to Joe Burrow. He's next, and at 7, it is Justin Herbert on the road against Philly. The turnaround for Herbert starts here and now, and he has a big game against the Eagles. The final player in our tier 2 list is Kyler Murray at San Francisco. Remember, keep a close eye just in case. Starting off our tier 3, it is Jalen Hurts at home against the Chargers. Next up, we move to Derek Carr, and he gets the Giants. I think he absolutely lights up New York's here, and he keeps the Raiders rolling. Moving on, we have Tua Tagovailoa at home against Houston, and while I don't know if the Dolphins are actually going to win this game, I believe that Tua does enough to finish as a QB1 once again. The final player in our tier 3 list is Kirk Cousins. He gets Baltimore, and he should rebound quite nicely because this game does not matter. In our fourth tier, it starts with Daniel Jones. He gets Vegas. I don't anticipate the Raiders are going to struggle to score here, so I think Jones has a decent day trying to keep up. Then we move to Ryan Tannehill on the road against the Rams. At 15, it is Tyrod Taylor at Miami, and I love him as a streaming option this week, especially with the news that Taysom Hill is no longer good to go. Miami cannot stop anything, and his mobility is going to help against this pass rush. The final player in tier 4 is Teddy Bridgewater. He gets Dallas. We move then to our fifth and final tier, and it starts with Matt Ryan on the road against New Orleans in a brutal matchup. At 18, it's Mac Jones. He gets to visit Carolina this week, and I just think this is an overall low-scoring affair as neither of these offenses really scare anyone, unless you're the Jets, of course. Our 19th ranked player is Jimmy Garoppolo against Arizona. He continues to fight for his starting job. Can Jimmy keep this up? I'm not so sure. Arizona is going to be a real test for him. Baker Mayfield is next on the road against Cincinnati. I am not worried about the loss of Odell Beckham. At 21, and the final player on our quarterback list, Jordan Love slides in here on the road against Kansas City. He's going to be a decent option playing in the second string of games, and you could certainly do worse because of the weapons around him. Let's now move to my running backs, and we start with Darrell Williams. He gets Green Bay. CEH is unlikely to play in this game. He still hasn't been taken off of IR, so it means at least one and maybe multiple weeks still for Williams. He's going to be a low-end RB2 for me against a decent Packers front seven. Next up is the combination of Saquon Barkley and Devontae Booker. It looks like the Giants are going to do what they should have all along and keep Barkley out this week and then next week as the Giants have a bye. That means great things for owners of Booker because he has an awesome matchup in the Raiders, and I have him as a high-end RB2 here. Moving on, we have the combination of Christian McCaffrey and Chuba Hubbard. They get New England at home. I already had anticipated that we were going to have McCaffrey sit out at least another week, so Chuba slides in, and he is going to be right where we had him initially. Up next is Chase Edmonds, who continues to remain limited as he deals with that shoulder injury. Now, he did have a 59% snap share last week. I expect something similar to that this week. There is no change for him. The final running back I want to discuss is James Robinson in a brutal matchup at home against Buffalo. He's missed back-to-back practices and is trending down. I'm going to take him out of my rankings for now, but certainly keep a close eye on it. He still could play. If he does, I would have him as a low-end RB2. In his stead, we slide in Carlos Hyde, but he is nothing more than a really risky, high-volume flex play with not a ton of upside. I would find another option if you can. Let's now walk you through my tiers, and we're going to start with Austin Eckler. Pound for pound is about to crush Philadelphia on the road. At 2, we have Dalvin Cook. He goes to visit Baltimore. He's going to rebound nicely after a so-so performance against Dallas. At 3, we have Alvin Kamara against Atlanta at home. Sliding up next at 4 with Aaron Jones, and that is on the road against Kansas City. With Aaron Rodgers out here, I expect Jones is going to see volume in bunches. Rounding out the top 5, Darrell Henderson Jr. slides in, and he continues his dominance against Tennessee. Najee Harris is next, and he gets Chicago at home. After King Henry's injury, does Pittsburgh reevaluate the insane touches that Najee has received over his last 3? 84? It's doubtful, and I think another 25 plus is incoming this week. Moving on to our second tier. Nick Chubb is our 7th ranked player. He gets Cincinnati on the road. I think he has a big bounce back week in a must win for Cleveland. Chubb is going to ease owners' worries with a performance here. Joe Mixon is next. He is our 8th ranked player in that same game. Moving on, it's Ezekiel Elliott. And after getting bottled up against the Vikings, I think that Zeke has a solid performance here for Dallas. Rounding out the top 10, we have Damian Harris on the road against a stout Panthers front. And the final player in our second tier is Elijah Mitchell. He gets Arizona. As we move on to our third tier, we start with Chuba Hubbard at home against New England, and while it is not a great matchup, there's going to be plenty of volume for him here. Josh Jacobs is next. He gets the Giants, and then we move to Devontae Booker, newly added against those Raiders. Zach Moss is next. He gets an awesome matchup in the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I think this is going to be a certain positive game script for him, so he's going to see a bunch of touches. Next up, we move to Chase Edmonds, going on the road to face San Francisco. Then it is Khalil Herbert. He gets Pittsburgh on the road in a tough matchup as well, but we have seen him produce under these same type of circumstances before. Next up, we have Melvin Gordon. He goes on the road to face Dallas. And the last player in our third tier is Myles Gaskin. He gets Houston at home. I think he has a big opportunity here to cement his place as a dependable RB2. Now, he could certainly outperform this ranking with a big day, but he needs to prove it to me, so go ahead and do that, Myles. As we move to tier number 4, at 20, we have Javonte Williams. As we move down, next is Boston Scott. He gets a great matchup in the LA Chargers, and even though there's plenty of risk, as the Eagles' backfield is basically just one huge question mark, this matchup is worth the reward. 22, we have James Conner, and 23 is Cordero Patterson at New Orleans. We definitely need to temper expectations here against a stout New Orleans front. Darrell Williams is a newcomer. With the news that CEH is out, he's at 24. Rounding out the top 25, A.J. Dillon finds himself, and I think that there is more work here guaranteed to help support Jordan Love. The final player in our Tier 4 list is D'Ernest Johnson at Cincinnati. He has that touchdown upside in a run-heavy Browns offense. Going to our fifth and our final tier, it starts with the combination of Adrian Peterson and Jeremy McNichols. I think that Peterson is going to be solid in this game, although he may not see the work yet that owners are hoping for. He's got nothing but positive reviews, so he climbs a bit and is my preference. If he is available on your waivers, you need to find a way to get him on your roster. Next up is Carlos Hyde. We slide him in here with the injured James Robinson. I hate this matchup, but he's going to see plenty of volume. Next up is Tony Pollard, and then Devin Singletary against Jacksonville on the road. At 31, it is Mike Davis on the road against the Saints, and the final running back we have for you guys is Kenneth Gainwell against the Chargers. This is a perfect time to say if you are enjoying the content, if you're new, or if you haven't done it yet, please like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate your support. Drop any questions or comments down below for me, and let's move on to our wide receivers. The first wide receiver we're going to cover is Robert Woods. He has still not practiced as he deals with his foot injury, and it's a concerning sign for owners because they play on Sunday night. If Van Jefferson is out there and available, he would be an excellent pickup and safety valve in case Woods can't go. He jumps up a few spots in my rankings. If Woods does go, he is a high-end wide receiver too, and I am keeping him in my rankings for now. A desperation option if you do wait and you can't get Jefferson could be Darnell Mooney, who plays against the Steelers on Monday night. We then move to the combination of Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb in Dallas. Cooper has been limited all week, but I think he is going to play, coming in as a questionable tag. As far as CeeDee Lamb, he injured his ankle, looks like he sprained it on Wednesday and did not practice Thursday. Now, he was expected to practice on Friday, but I am downgrading him due to this new injury. If Cooper is in and CeeDee Lamb is not, Cooper becomes an instant must-start wide receiver 1 for us. Let's now move to New York, where it is another week, another Giants wide receiver room conundrum. Between Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney, and Kenny Golladay, there is a lot to discuss. It doesn't look like Sterling Shepard is going to play at all, so we throw him out. For Kadarius Toney, it looks like he is trending likely to play, and the same can be said of Kenny Golladay. Between those last two, I like Toney the most, but I don't think either of them are better than a risky flex. We move on to Buffalo, where Cole Beasley has not practiced and is looking like he still may suit up, but at a limited capacity. This makes me move up Emmanuel Sanders a little bit and Beasley down my rankings. With Dawson Knox Also out for Buffalo, there's going to be more targets for both Sanders and Diggs. Next up is Julio Jones against the Rams, and it looks like he might actually play with back-to-back limited sessions after missing 3 games already this season. He joins my rankings, but there is obviously some risk here with Jones. The last player to cover for wide receivers is DeAndre Hopkins, and he is still nursing that hamstring injury, the same one that he had since last week. Now, he only had a 24% snap share playing through it, so there's certainly risk in putting him in your lineups. I move him down significantly because of this. Christian Kirk, on the other hand, skyrockets up. He is my 21st ranked wide receiver because he is probably going to be the #1 receiver in Arizona this week. Let's now walk through my final tiers for wide receiver. At 1, it starts with my little Cooper Kupp. Next up at 2, it is Deebo Samuel against the Arizona Cardinals. It looks like he's going to play and ball out against the Cards. At 3, it is Tyreek Hill in that matchup with the Packers. At 4, we have Jamar Chase against Cleveland. Rounding out the top 5 is Stephon Diggs on the road against Jacksonville, and I like him more now that Beasley is dealing with that rib injury and the injury to Knox. Justin Jefferson is next on the road against Baltimore, and the final players in my tier 1 are Devontae Adams and A.J. Brown. I think that Adams could see a 35% target share fairly easily. However, the value of targets coming from Jordan Love evens that out. Into our second tier, we start with Deontay Johnson. Then rounding out our top 10, it is Keenan Allen on the road against Philly. And at 11 is his teammate in Mike Williams. One of those two is going to go off, or maybe they both do. Adam Thielen is next, and then it's Robert Woods. And the final player in our second tier is DJ Moore against New England. With no CMC and potential shadow coverage from JC Jackson, this certainly is not an ideal situation. We enter into tier number 3, which is where we get started with CeeDee Lamb. Next up is Marquise Brown. He gets that Minnesota defense, and it looks like Rashad Bateman might miss this game, so he could certainly outperform this ranking and boom against the Vikings. Then we move to Brandon Cooks. He gets that awesome Miami matchup, and at 18 is where we find Nuke Hopkins sliding down with that news of his hamstring still bothering him. At 19, Amari Cooper gets Denver. He would rise up considerably if CeeDee Lamb misses. The final player in our top 20 is T. Higgins. He gets Cleveland. At 21, it's Christian Kirk, and there is big upside as the potential #1 wide receiver for the Cardinals. The final player in tier 3 is Emmanuel Sanders on the road against the Jags. As we move to tier number 4, we start with Jalen Waddle, who gets a bump because Devontae Parker has been downgraded to doubtful. Next up is Chase Claypool in that primetime matchup. And at 25, it is Courtland Sutton on the road against the Cowboys. Next up is Jerry Jeudy, who has a good chance to move up the rankings quickly if he can put a solid performance in here. Cole Beasley slides down a bit with that injury. He's 27. At 28, it's Jarvis Landry on the road against the Bengals. I am not moving him at all. I think that the Odell Beckham situation is more addition by subtraction than anything. And finally, in the last spot in our tier 4 list, it is Tyler Boyd against Cleveland. Our 5th and final tier, and rounding out the top 30, Van Jefferson finds himself against that Tennessee team. He would skyrocket into a high-end wide receiver 2 territory if Robert Woods ends up missing. Julio Jones finds himself next at 31, sliding in there. 32 becomes Devonta Smith against the Chargers. This is a really tough matchup, and Smith has not been on the same page as Hurts as of late. Next up, it's Marvin Jones in that brutal matchup with Buffalo. At 34, we find Kadarius Toney against the Raiders. 35 is Jacoby Myers in a low-scoring affair with Carolina. And the final wide receiver we have ranked in Week 9 is Kenny Golladay against the Raiders. We just have one tight end to quickly talk about, and that is George Kittle, who we already expected to play, so there is no change in our rankings. As we move to our tiers, at number 1, we start with Darren Waller, and this is going to be the monster game that owners drafted him for. Moving to 2, it is Travis Kelce. He gets Green Bay. As we start our second tier, it's Mark Andrews first at Minnesota, rounding out our top 3. Next up is Kyle Pitts. He's not going to fall flat on his face like he did last week, but the Saints defense is legit. At 5, it's Mike Gesicki against Houston at home. I think he keeps his hot streak going in a shootout. The final player in our Tier 2 list at tight end is Dallas Goedert against the Chargers. As we move to Tier 3, this is where we find George Kittle at the top. I do not expect him to be limited much, if at all. Welcome back, Mr. Kittle. Next up at 8, it's Dalton Schultz. And at 9, we have Tyler Higbee against the Titans. This feels like a solid game for Higbee, who has been quiet as of late. Rounding out the top 10, it's Zach Ertz. He gets the Niners on the road. We move to our 4th tier, and we see Tyler Conklin on the road against the Ravens, and then Pat Freiermuth against Chicago. I think that rookie continues his breakout in prime time. Jared Cook is next, and then Dan Arnold in that brutal matchup with the Bills. The final tight end that we have ranked is going to be Hunter Henry against Carolina. And that is all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It helps me out a bunch on my road to my first 100 subscribers. Please drop any start-sit questions down below or reach out to me on the Sleeper app at The Real Guru. I would love to be able to help you out. This is Relentless Press. I am your host, Avery Amopass, and we'll see you next time.